Hi, Chris.
Hi, Larry, how are you?
I'm on top of the world, living the dream. What can I say? And I've got to say, 20 years ago, this started, and what a joy it is to actually talk to you today after 20 years. Quite amazing.
I was a
Really is.
whippersnapper. I wish. I wish. Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think we even realised 2 months ago, did we, that we were going to be 20 years old? It was quite
I
remarkable.
know. I know.
It was,
You
yeah,
get the champ.
it's frightening, frightening.
Listen, let's go right back to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about Catherine and how it all started.
Um, well, of course, Catherine was about 21, 22, just come out of Bristol with a law degree and a chemistry degree. Keeled over one day, had a fit in a supermarket, I think. They rushed to the hospital and brain surgery the next Saturday, and found out that she got GBM. And what happened was that by pure coincidence, one of my best friends was married to somebody whose dad was at St Thomas's, who basically said, prepare Chris for the worst, because she's got about 5 months to live at most. And so this was kind of off the record. And they'd never had anybody at St Thomas's live more than 18 months at that time. St Thomas is now part of Guy's. So that was the, if you like, start point. So I kind of did what any dad would do. I think I just got stuck in to protect my tribe. And obviously being an biochemist, I started reading. I remember I was on golf tour down here and I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to read. And I think it's important to say, people just don't remember, 20 something years ago when this happened, there was no real internet. Into Berners-Lee, come out of CERN in about 95, and it was all PubMed articles that I was reading. I wasn't reading websites saying this is what you do with a brain tumor. I was having to read PubMed articles all the time. So that's what happened. Catherine, I mean, it's easy to forget. Catherine couldn't have the drugs. She had 1 round of temozolomide, hated it. White cells went all over the place. She had 1 round of something called PCV, which we all think killed her, but that's, in the end. We kind of had to do other things. We were being told everything was gloomy and doomy. And so we had to look elsewhere. I didn't ever set out to be an alternative person or a complementary person. I was trying to protect my daughter's life. So I would read things and then ring her up and say, do you know what? I found 3 studies on PubMed that say fish oils are really good for brain tumors. And so it would go on. That's what would happen. And we found all this stuff that could make a significant difference to her life. And, she carried on. I think this is the real issue. She carried on with her lifestyle. So she went skiing, snowboarding, she went diving. It was south of France. What a lifestyle. It was Barbados and so on. And we changed her diet. We gave her supplements. Yes, we did. I was also worried about the fact that she'd always had tonsillitis. And so I was worried about yeasts. I started reading up about yeasts and other things that could be going on in her body and tried to kill them. So I suppose in a funny way, we almost built the first ever complementary program around the outside of the drugs. But as I said, she didn't really have the drugs. Mega problem with white cells at one point. She just had none. So she came down here and I was giving her turmeric, echinacea, cat's claw, a few other things, and the white cells went through the roof. And I got a screaming Catherine on the phone saying, what the hell have you done? And, that's what we done. We got it so that she could have another round of drugs. They didn't give her another one. So that was kind of it, really. We did lots of things. And I think what really came home to me was the fact that at the 11th hour, 59th minute, when I actually talked to them, because I was trouble, you got to remember I was trouble, and said, can I have your blood tests on Catherine? And they said, what, the white ones and the red cells? And I said, no, blood tests. I said, this girl's lived 3-4 times longer than she was given, 8 times longer than she was given, and 2-3 times longer than your best ever person. You know, haven't you tried to find out why? And I was gobsmacked. I mean, they sort of said, well, you can go down to Harley Street, 3,800 quid later. We did the blood tests, and they said, very interesting, she's got no natural killer cells, so the poor love could never have beaten it. We think that was the PCV. And secondly, they said, she's got really bad yeast, and she's probably got a virus. And we think it might be in her brain. So I went charging back to St. Thomas's and said, this is what happened. They said, oh, well, we've got drugs, but the drugs will probably kill her. And that was the end of that. So now I know lots more. So that was the saga.
I know.
Sorry?
Considering you didn't start life from scratch here, because you're a qualified biochemist, I mean, from Oxford, but you spent 20
I was
years
very conscious of the fact that I've done my biochemistry, whatever it was, a lifetime before. I mean, I spent 22 years, as I always joke, on sabbatical in advertising, then had 5 years off doing interesting things to do with health. I've always been interested in health, as you know. I was always very kind of wary of the oncologist, and I used to say, look, I am a biochemist. You know, I mean, there was a classic moment. Catherine was doing radiotherapy, and I saw Beanie and his sidekick in the radiotherapy, and they said, have you got any questions? And they sort of ducked under the table. No, they didn't really. And I said, yeah, I've got a question. I said, she just had brain surgery, and you seem to be quite happy that she would eat ice cream and drink Ribena for a couple of weeks afterwards. And they didn't even answer the question. One turned to the other and said, Chris thinks that if we stop glycolysis, then we stop a brain tumor, and laughed at me. Well, when, as you know, the family, not particularly me, but the family raised 2.5 million quid for a machine for Queen Square, so you could see the brain tumor in real time when you're operating, rather than have a Polaroid on the window from 2 days before. And there was a cocktail party, and my ex-wife went to it, and that Beanie came up to her apparently and said, we've got people living almost as long as Catherine. And note the word almost. And Darren said, what are you doing? Some new drug? He said, no, we've got everybody in the Atkins diet. What was the Atkins diet? You didn't give anybody carbohydrates. So you shut down the ability of the cancer to feed. Glycolysis. So I was troubled.
Yeah.
I would point these things out, you know, got to laugh, really. Hey ho.
But what I'm saying, having come from a background of studied in biology and whatever, and done a degree at Oxford, you've now in the last 20 years probably become certainly one of the top 3, if not the top research people on scientific research as far as cancer is concerned. And, you know, do you now know things that could have helped her more?
I think there's a couple of points there. I was flattered. I think we should all be flattered to get several letters from oncologists when we announced we were 20 years old saying, great work, keep it up. I was really, really surprised. It was very nice. And secondly, yes, we have learnt more. Not lots, I have to say, in 20 years. We know that temozolomide is very, very limited. It only works if you're methylating, and the figure is 20% of people are methylating, but we get people at 7.5%, 10%, 12.5%. I don't know if that's really methylating. I think you have to be, you know, north of 40 or something like that for it to work properly. What we do definitely know is my suspicion that sugar is dangerous if you've got a brain tumor, anything wrong with your brain. We know that for a fact. I mean, so kids get epileptic fits. You take the sugar away and they go from 30 a day down to 1 every 3 weeks. We know that older people, sugar poisons their brain, they're more likely to get dementia. So we know sugar's bad news. And so we've done things there. Thirdly, I'm much more aware, better actually. I'm much better at rebuilding someone's microbiome and actually killing the bad guys. So that I think is the most important thing. I think perhaps we've not moved as far in brain tumors, unfortunately, as they have in other cancers. The big area is immunotherapy, And in Catherine's day, I talked to a guy called Dr. Henry Friedman at Duke's in Carolina. And when we were 10 years old, Madeline, our writer, went over to talk to him, and unbeknown to me. And he'd had a girl called Amy at the same time as Catherine. And Amy had, none of the drugs worked for Amy. So he built her a dendritic cell vaccine. I mean, in those days, they used to work at about 8% level. Amy built a protocol of supplements around the outside, did exercise and everything else. And Amy's now married, 2 kids, and she was an air hostess, but about the same age as Catherine. So yeah, dendritic cell vaccines are very, very interesting. And there's been this 12-year study, and King's College led the study for Europe. And any moment, well, I think it has actually come onto the market now. There's a factory being built in England, and it's going to give people a longer life. There's no question about it. And there's also, Dukes themselves are playing with polio virus and using the polio virus to carry in killers into the brain tumor. I think it's still early days, but we have learned other things. But we had it pretty right, I think. That sounds a bit big, but it's not. We just had it pretty right. And that was from reading PubMed, not from looking at websites about brain tumors.
And what was the motivation behind starting the charity?
Catherine, really. Catherine said to me, I'm in hospital for 2 weeks, lying here doing nothing. Why isn't there a magazine I can read? Why are there no leaflets or anything like that? And excuse me. And so she wanted a magazine, and she was working for Tatler, Vogue, and so on. And obviously I was ex-advertising. And so we got a few friends and put a magazine together. And it started, I think it was a bit naive at the start, but it was the first of its kind. There was nothing else in hospitals. And we basically, it begot the charity, if that's a word. So all these articles that appeared in the magazine, then, what do we do with these? Well, let's put them on a website. And that it was kind of, off we went. And people liked us right from the start. That was the motivation for the magazine. And we started putting these pages on the website. And I go back to what I said earlier on. People weren't talking about fish oils. People weren't talking about turmeric with cancer and echinacea and things like that. It just weren't. There weren't any websites. So I'm sure cancer research was around. But in terms of the integrative website, we were there. We must have been #1 in Europe. Well, I'm sure we are. I'm sure we were first out. So that's kind of the background to it. And I think there was one big other point about starting a charity. We had this kind of phrase between Catherine and I, which was "don't die of ignorance." And she said to me one day, she said, "Dad, why did I never learn all about this? I mean, why have I got a brain tumor? Why didn't I learn about this at university or school? Why didn't anybody tell me you mustn't do this?" And when we started researching, we found out there was so much you could do. So it wasn't just in prevention, it was actually in correction. There was so much you could do to help yourself and take some control, exert some power over your own treatment and destiny. And that's why we started the charity. We just didn't feel that people should sort of lie back and let it all happen to them. We felt there were people needed to know that, at the moment, people were dying of ignorance. And that's terrible. That's terrible when people die of ignorance, because there were things they could have done with breast cancer or prostate cancer or whatever. That's what we were trying to do, prevent people from dying. So it's either prevention or it was correction. Okay, so I think that's it. That's the real.
Now, as you've learned and picked up stuff and researched stuff over the years, how has the magazine changed? What were the regular features to start with?
Well, it's gone from being, actually, when I look back on the first few magazines, it was a bit of an embarrassment. And we just kept going, really. And I met Gerin Tosh, who was the guy who used the Gerson therapy to beat his multiple myeloma. And so he wrote a book called Living Proof. And I said, do you mind if we put a living proof in every single magazine. So there was always a 4-page article on someone who'd beaten their cancer. And we didn't mind. It could have been totally done on drugs, or it could have been on drugs and complementary stuff. We wanted to do evidence to people that they could beat their cancer. Yeah, we had a section on It's Only Natural. We had a major article, major feature every month. We used to talk about mobile phones and mammograms and things like that. But I think the biggest thing for people was that we had a news section, and it was just short articles, and it was crammed into the sort of 8 pages of the magazine. And Catherine wanted it to be like Cosmopolitan. She wanted it to be sort of lots of it, kind of easy to read, easy to learn from, quite trendy if it could be, and just kind of bouncy, live, exciting. And that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to make sure that anybody who picked the magazine up could find, 1, 2, 3 things in there that was relevant to them. So that's what the magazine did. And had, sections on. We couldn't get people to advertise. That was the biggest problem. I went and used my connections in advertising. No, people don't want to be associated with death. And I kept saying, no, it's a magazine associated with life. You got it completely wrong. But they wouldn't take that as an idea. But we've covered everything. We covered diet, lifestyle, stress management, supplements, whatever. We've covered it all in the years. Proton beam therapy, you name it. We've done it all. And in the end, before pandemic, we were going to 640 hospitals, cancer centers, libraries, and so on. It was big. And I mean, I want to have a 20th birthday edition. We might have to bring it out in January, but I just want to do a 20th. I just want to say, here we are. This is what we've done. I think it'd be great.
Quite right. And yet, way back in 2004, before people were talking about it, you organised a prevention conference.
Yeah, well,
what was the reason? What was the reason behind that?
It was a lot to do with Lindsay, the organisation. Lindsay was my cousin who was chief exec at the time. And it was about Catherine really saying, why didn't no one tell me? Why did no one tell me what this was all about? And I remember reading some research. It was in a well-known medical journal, the Daily Mail. And I think it says something like, if you've got a heart attack, 82% of people, I'm making the figure up, but 82% of people know how you can prevent heart attacks. They know that they can do something against having a heart attack. And the figure for cancer was 4%. So in whatever it was, 2004, only 4% of people could correctly suggest something that might prevent them get cancer. That's crazy. So we knew that we had to involve oncologists. We knew we had to involve MPs or whatever. So Lindsay got the venue bang opposite the House of Parliament. And we had, 500 people there that day. And it turned out it was Britain's first ever cancer prevention conference. It's probably the last ever as well. I mean, I don't know that there's been another one, but it's sinful really that, nobody worries about cancer prevention. I know cancer research would jump on me for saying that, but they don't. I remember one figure when I was writing the first book, and it was something like less than a penny in every pound of their money raised went on cancer prevention. Well, if you could stop it, make a big difference to the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there much on the website about prevention?
Well, in the early day, I mean, we've got about 4,000 pages now, and I'm about to take a load off from way, way back. But I would have said by 2010, a third of the pages on our website were all about prevention. Still there now. So we cover lots of things you can do to help prevent. And I used to go around, as you know, talking in schools. That's one of the big things I did. Just go and talk in schools. And, kids need to know. Kids need to know how they might prevent it. Because the problem is, with cancer, no one thinks they're going to get it till they get it. So no one thinks.
Oh, that's right. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, I used to say no one thinks about cancer prevention until about 5 minutes after they've got it. And that is the big problem. Everybody thinks they're immune from this thing, but we're getting to a point where 1 in 2 people are going to get cancer. That's where So either you or me, mate. That's what it's going to be.
It's frightening when you look at a family of 2 children and wonder which one it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
know?
I'm researching all the time, and as you know, I don't. All the new articles that I ever do now have got 14 or 15 references. So I've just been looking at PALB2, which is part of the BRCA1, BRCA2 group, and PALB2 links to BRCA2. And I was looking at a family with 3 daughters in it, all of whom have PALB2. Now, this is genetic testing. This is for the future. But I've got a lady with it today, and she wants to know what to do. And no one's told her. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I only know about drugs because people tell me. I don't want to know about drugs officially. But, you know, I happened to say to her, has your oncologist talked to you about PARP, a PARP inhibitor? And she said, no, what's that? You know, I just sent her all the stuff today. There's a website that's British, and there's several in America, obviously. And PARP, a PARP inhibitor, is what it's all about. And funny enough, most of the supplements I use are actually PARP inhibitors. Really funny. PARP inhibitors are really good. They block polymerases, which copy things wrongly or correctly, depending on what sort of polymerase you've got. I'm a biochemist. I'm a biochemist, guys.
But trouble is, in my cynical opinion, you know, it doesn't get published because it doesn't make money. And the industry is all about making.
I have a little hobby horse, and I've had it for about 10 years, and it's just coming out. When PARP inhibitors came out, they were for people who'd got a BRCA1 or BRCA2 genetic mutation inherited. And 7% of the population have got this sort of mutation. And it's known about if you've got breast cancer, especially triple negative, and it's known about if you've got ovarian. They might test you for it, but not everybody gets tested. But hang on, 7% of the population have got PARP genetic mutation. So do they test you when you got lung cancer? Did they test you when you got pancreatic cancer? Oh, they're just finding out maybe pancreatic cancer has got, you know, an issue with PARP. So you know, I've always said they should test everybody who gets cancer, you know, when they do the very first test to see if they've got a PARP mutation. They've got a BRCA1, BRCA2 mutation, and PARP could deal with it. These are a great bunch of drugs. Hey ho.
Amazing. There's so much. I mean,
Oh,
early on, just changing the subject slightly. Early on, you wrote the first ever book, Like It, The Rainbow Diet, right? Tell us a bit about the Rainbow Diet.
First of all, I used to come off stage. As you know, I suddenly got asked to speak everywhere. And so it was, you know, I was doing shows all over Britain, all over Australia, and several else. And I'd come off stage, and we had one book, which was Everything You Need to Know to Help You Beat Cancer, which is evolved hugely. It doesn't exist at the moment because I haven't had time to write the 7th edition. But coming off stage, people say, what diet should I be on? And it was very funny because back in about 1985, 86, as you know, I speak French, and I'd gone down to Toulouse to learn French in the wilds of D'Artagnan country. And I knew about the French paradox. I knew about the Mediterranean diet. I'm sitting, sorry to have to say hello, everybody, I'm sitting in the Mediterranean now at my French house. And so I knew all about the Mediterranean diet and the reputation of it and so on. But there was only one study at the time from Harvard with animals. And when I'd been learning my French, I knew about the French paradox, which was that the French eat more fat, drink more alcohol than anybody else in the world, but they also have less cancer and less heart disease. That was true 15, 20, 40 years ago. And everybody's sitting around the main square reading the Figaro, I think it was. And I said to someone, well, what's happened? And they said, we've won. So I said, what have you won? And they said, we eat even more fat and drink even more alcohol than anybody else in France. And we've won. We get even less heart attacks and even less cancer. And you could see, if you just stood back a yard, that that kind of wasn't quite true. Yes, they do have, you know, there is the home of foie gras, and it is the home of Armagnac, and they drink Madeira and so on. That's their red wine. But then you'd see them pour olive oil on a plate with lots of black pepper and balsamic and dip their bread into it, and that's their snack. And they'd all have their potager, and they were growing their own vegetables and so on. So what I realized was that there was a lot going on that almost certainly protected them. And then I looked into it and realized there was a lot that could correct them. But I was at great pains to point out, right from day one in 2005, that this was a lifestyle, not a diet. Maybe I didn't make that clear enough. So yes, it's a diet, but it's a lifestyle. So it's about community. I mean, they're Catholics, but Sardinia is the big blue zone area of Europe, but then there's another one on an island in Greece, and they're not Catholics. And but they still have the same sense of community. And so are the people in Okinawa. They have a terrific sense of community, and they look after their old people. And then you start looking at the old people, and they haven't got sticks, and they haven't got glasses, and that's because they walk lots. And so they're even in their 90s. You know, I was watching people walking uphill to go somewhere. And so it's community and so on. And diet's just a part of it. And actually the big food benefits, the big positive things are things like olives, olive oil, fish, oily fish, nuts, walnuts, and things like this. These are all really good oils, but also they put up the gut bacteria that make anti-inflammatory molecules. And this is huge, because that's what actually you're doing. You're not just feeding yourself. You're not just nourishing yourself, you know, mind, body, soul, all that sort of stuff. You're actually nourishing your gut bacteria, because these guys are going to look after you. And when you know, the French in the Mediterranean, what do they pride themselves on? Raw cheese. They'll happily tell you they got 365 cheeses, and that every single one of them's got the raw version, the unpasteurized version. So you start to build this picture that actually diet's just this little bit of it. And from the diet comes everything else. They'll come the Sunday lunch, when 12 of them are sitting around a big table in the sunshine, or perhaps with an awning over the top of them. It still allows the sunlight through. You'll make melatonin and things like that. And, you know, it's laughter, it's fun, it's happiness. That's what the rainbow diet is. Okay, it's not just about the food. And, you know, it alarms me that there are 6 copies of the rainbow diet in America. Guys, do you realize it's protected by the British Library? You know, I love Americans because they'll moan about the Chinese copying their stuff, but they won't think twice about copying somebody else's. But they all think that the rainbow diet is chucking berries and vegetables in a blender. Yeah. It's not. It's not. That's not what it's about. It's about the blue zones, you know, where these people, more people live to 80, 90, and 100 because of this whole environment of happiness and valuing your older people. This is another big part of it. Valuing the people who are senior because they've got knowledge. I mean, dementia is almost non-existent in Sardinia or in the island in Greece. It's almost non-existent. It's crazy.
I mean, I was amazed that you were talking about gut bacteria as early as 2005.
Yeah, it's because of Catherine, I'd done a lot of research on yeasts because she had antibiotics every year for 21 years because of tonsillitis. And from there, I started looking at other things. And then I started looking at what virus might she have in her brain that they were talking about. And when we came to do the website, obviously, I was writing every different cancer up. And I got to colorectal cancer, and you always copy a bit from somebody else. And there was, I mustn't name them, they'll probably sue me. There was a website which you ought to know better. And it was saying that I think red meat, wine, and coffee were responsible for colorectal cancer. And I rang up the marketing director with my old badge on, advertising, and he knew me. And I said, "Can you send me the research, because I can't find any?" And he came back 2 days later and said, "I can't find any either." So one of the biggest websites for colorectal cancer, they were telling people this prevented it, and all three were wrong. And I happened to notice that the problems of colorectal cancer were not typical problems of cancer. They actually were to do with the bugs inside your gut. So the symptoms were to do with poor yeast or bacteria or perhaps even parasites back in 2005. And I wrote an article which was called, because I'm a Rolling Stones fan, it was called Mother's Little Helpers. It was 4 pages in the magazine, and somebody at Yakult at the top read it, and they rang up, I think it was Wendy or Susan in the office, and said, "This is the best article we've ever read by an amateur." Damned by faint praise. So they lent me the European microbiology head. And boy, was this an eye-opener. I still think that Yakult in 2005-06 knew more than the average oncologist does today in Britain. So I wrote my first article in 2005. I wrote my first book in 2008. Then came the Human Microbiome Project in America, which most oncologists in America know about. It was a 3-year study. Can you imagine this? 40 medical schools, 200 scientists, so that no one study could be trodden on by people that you know and I know are quite naughty in the world. And this was a huge study. And it said, your gut gets ill first, then you get ill. And secondly, you can't get better till your gut gets better. I will never forget those 2 points. A chap called Hippocrates, you might have heard of him, he said the same thing 2,500 years ago. But these 2 points are really, really important. And, you know, I changed the book. I wrote a kind of new version in 2011 and on gut bacteria. And I was just, actually, we haven't updated it because most people don't know 90% that's in the book. And people don't realize, for example, we've got research now. It's nice we've got research, but you would have guessed it. I would have guessed it all along. Would you believe women who have their chemo, radiotherapy, surgery with breast cancer, and then fix their gut, survive much, much, much longer, you know, in official terms, significantly longer than women who don't? Well, of course. And I've got other research. I don't know why in America I seem to have a name for doing stem cell transplants. Don't ask, I've no idea. And we know that they did research. So they gave people 2 drugs for 4 rounds. That's all. And 2 drugs for 4 rounds and a month's worth of antibiotics. They get you off it all quickly in America. In Britain, we carry on for about 9 months on stem cell transplants. Loopy. I don't know why we do it. But what happens is in America, they get you off. And they did this research where they gave people, half of them, fecal transplants. And they got back to 80% of their microbiome within like 2 weeks. I think it might have been 5 days, but something like that. So that's huge. It's massive. They let the other half go home and have a year at home, building themselves up. And 1 year later, when they tested those people's microbiomes, I'll repeat, 2 drugs, 4 rounds, 1 month of antibiotics. That's all. Oncologists, doctors, patients who are listening, their microbiomes were only 27% of where they should be a year on. That's how damaging this all is. So I get people who say to me things like, I don't know why my cancer's come back. You say, well, you had all that treatment in 2012. Brilliant. You know, you've lasted a long time on it all, but you never refixed your gut. And now you know why I'm so anti things like doxycycline as treatments for cancer. I don't care what they do. Just ruin your gut. So I've answered the question. That's where I'm very intense on the gut, because to me, it's the controller of the body.
Yeah, I can understand that. I know that. and I believe in support you 1,000% on that. I mean, let me just ask, look, you've championed so many things and been the first to champion most of them. Let's talk about a few. Hyperbaric oxygen.
Yeah. Hyperbaric Oxygen, I wrote up about 19 years ago, and I got attacked by a doctor about 2013, and I found in 2012 was research published by two ladies, a meta-analysis of 90 studies. They said the same four things as me. They said, number one, if you go into a chamber, a hyperbaric oxygen chamber was invented for divers who came up too fast and got the bends. Then they found it was very good for soldiers and firemen who got burnt. And then they found it was quite healing internally. So that's what hyperbaric oxygen chamber is. It gives you oxygen under a certain pressure. And so these two ladies said the same four things as me. Number one, you have hyperbaric oxygen, 3 sessions, hour in a session, twiddle your thumbs. Multiple Sclerosis Society, we're very lucky in Britain, got chambers all over Britain. And I understand Royal Marsden are thinking of building one right now. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I've been told. And so number one, you have oxygen, you get up to 99% within 3 sessions of hyperbaric oxygen. That makes your blood slightly more alkaline and your immune system works better. Number two, hyperbaric oxygen makes your drugs work better. It makes radiotherapy work better. It also makes IVC work better, intravenous vitamin C. Thirdly, it actually reduces the side effects from chemo and radio. And the reason it does this, and I'm addressing an oncologist from this week, got it wrong. The reason it does this is your tumors are hypoxic. Any biochemist will tell you that's true. And when you've got hypoxia, that means that that poor little tumor has run out of oxygen. It just doesn't have enough blood supplies. It used them for a while, used it up. And what you're doing by having hyperbaric oxygen is you're flooding that tumor with oxygen, and you're creating a state of hyperoxia. And when that happens, all the defensive systems of the tumor go down. So like its ability to build chemo resistance goes down. And what happens when you have the chemo and the radio? Got no defenses. You kill more cells. You'll see on my show when I interview Slocum from chemothermia, he said exactly the same thing. That's what we know. Biochemists will tell you. So that's hyperbaric oxygen. We use it if someone's not at 99%. That's where you need to be in if you're fighting cancer. We use it the afternoon before chemotherapy or the morning of radiotherapy. There's great research on it. Next.
Amazing. Ablation, HIFU, and the nanoknife.
All right. Big. In America, they've used ablation lots for 20 years or so. We had Matt recently, 4 years ago, who came to me with lung cancer. He's got colorectal cancer. And he came to me, I'm sure he won't mind me telling you, and he said, I've got 10 tumors in my lungs, I'm dead. And I said, you've got tumors or nodules? Goes off, gets his piece of paper and says, I've got nodules. So I said, ablation. They give you a little cut, they go in with something, very, very fine, and it's called radio frequency ablation. So they heat it up and they almost cauterize the tumor, or they can give you cryoablation where they're using a gas. And it's quite common in America, they would do it, but not in Britain. And he went to his hospital, which I won't name, and they went to a very big hospital in the south of England who didn't do it, didn't do ablation 4 years ago. And he found someone in London who knocked out 27 nodules in his lungs. We got rid of it. And he got another, 5 years of life because of that. So we know all about ablation. People use it on the liver now. So it is growing in Britain. So that's ablation. Nanoknife is for deep-rooted cancers. And you stick a pin in either side of the cancer and pass a current across, you punch nano holes in the tumor. And I'm interviewing Sandra, as you know, she's one of our regional execs, and we've just had huge success knocking out. She had tumors on the surface of her liver, not inside, but you can use it. So the great thing about nanoknife it's for inoperable tumors, but more importantly, it punches nano holes in the cancer cells, but leaves like the blood supply and things like that, the blood vessels, you know, whatever's down there, the hepatic vein or whatever it is, artery, it leaves it intact. You don't damage it. And finally, HIFU is a variation of all this. I mean, these things are far, far less invasive than chemo or radio and so on. But then you can have HIFU. And HIFU is high intensity focused ultrasound. So it's the same as giving you ablation, but I don't have to cut you and go in. I can just sit 2 centimeters outside your prostate and I can heat up the tumor from outside. That's high intensity focused ultrasound. It's using ultrasound to heat you up. And I had a letter. This is absolutely true. I had a letter from 7 urologists in about 2005 saying, please look at this, because we think it's really important and it's going to grow and it should be part of the British medical scene. And if you like it, please, would you back it? And I've backed it ever since, because I read all about it and I like it. And it's big in America. But, you know, just tell me why 10 years ago, I had to send people to John Jarridge in Louisville. So that's what I was doing. People with money would go to John Jarridge in Louisville. He'd done about 1,500 people on HIFU, and he'd had almost no impotence and about 95% recovery from incontinence. And that's what HIFU does. And the funny thing was, when I interviewed Rob Thomas, Professor Robert Thomas of Addenbrooke's, he's a prostate head, I said, you know, NICE recommends surgery and radiotherapy. What would you have? And he said, HIFU. He would pay the money. As an oncologist in Britain, on my show, saying he'd pay the money to have HIFU. So would I. Right? But it's not available on NICE and the NHS. So I've championed that little lot because they're using it all the time in America. We're falling behind.
Yeah. Okay, what about the proton beam therapy?
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, proton beam, actually, instead of having radiotherapy, which comes at you and goes straight through the healthy tissue in front and straight into the healthy tissue behind. And yes, you can have these robots that go around you and shoot at you from 10 different places and so on. Yeah, you can, but you're still going to get damage. And prostate cancer, I had 3 people about 3 years ago, 2 in Australia, 1 in Britain, with their rectum. They got rectal cancer from having radiotherapy on the prostate. Proton beam, you actually come up to the person again, you fire protons into them, and you set the machine to actually hit something 2.5 centimeters away. And it wipes out what's 2.5 centimeters away. It's very targeted. It doesn't spray everywhere. It doesn't kill anything behind. So I'm a great fan of proton beam. I had Carol Sikora on the show, and I feel very sorry for him because he set up Rutherford. They built 3 centers in Britain. These are not cheap. Proton beam's not cheap. And at the time when he planned it all, they were using proton beam therapy units not far from London, only 2 hours. Yeah, it was in Prague. So doctors on the NHS were sending people to Prague. And MD Anderson, when I covered it in 2009-10, I'd already done 15,000 people. And I had Cancer Research's blogger criticize me for recommending something, proton beam therapy, that wasn't researched. So 15,000 people isn't enough. And you think radiotherapy is researched more than proton beam? Really? So poor old Carol Sikora, literally, Rutherford's went bust. The NHS was supposed to launch 3 centers, of course, couldn't afford them. They were supposed to come out, I think, by 2022. They didn't. So it's all got political. That's the problem. It's political. But proton beam, excellent. One of my first patients with prostate cancer, a zillionaire in the Bahamas, when I spotted something was wrong, he went for proton beam. This must be 12 years ago. He doesn't have any problems with his prostate now. Why aren't we using it?
The next one is something most people just don't understand, although it sounds simple. Off-label drugs.
Big subject. Probably first suggested an off-label drug to someone in about 2007-8. Guy who was started all with Professor Angus Dalgleish. She's now retired. He was using metformin and atorvastatin in about 2007. He was a great champion of something called low-dose naltrexone. I started an article back then called How to Build Yourself a Off-Label Drugs Protocol, and it's been updated ever since. What I would say is, and I've put this in the article, why would anybody want to build an off-label drugs protocol? Because off-label drugs can be very, very careful with. They can contraindicate each other. Sometimes the off-label drug isn't as good. I much prefer berberine to metformin every day of the week. Metformin lowers your blood sugar. That's why it's used. Oncologists use it because they're doctors, so they will give you metformin, lowers your blood sugar, stops the cancer feeding. Oncologists are doing this. And then it also attacks mTOR, but it can have negative effects on the liver. Berberine cuts your blood sugar better, as you tried, and you know. And berberine also corrects AMPK, which corrects all the pathways, including mTOR. Berberine attacks microbes. Berberine is very, very anti-inflammatory. And there's something that leads to cancer that biochemists know about. It doesn't matter whether you get stressed or whether you eat badly, you build up something in your body called homocysteine. And homocysteine mucks up your copying process. So apart from inherited DNA, you've got no new mutations in your DNA, but your copying process has gone wrong. It's caused by homocysteine, which makes more histones. And metformin puts your homocysteine levels up, and berberine cuts your homocysteine levels. So would I ever use metformin? Very rarely, very rarely. Berberine's better. In my opinion, as a biochemist, berberine is better. So you got to be careful. So they're all drugs. Be careful of the side effects. Get someone who really knows what they're talking about, a doctor or oncologist. Something. But secondly, and that's what's happening in America and Australia, oncologists are doing this. And then secondly, when you've got cancer, you want the best thing for the job, don't you?
Absolutely right.
Hinocchio, traditional Chinese medicine, it stops angiogenesis, which is one of the claims for atorvastatin. So we often use lycopene and Hinocchio.
What's angiogenesis?
Angiogenesis is cancer cells picking up blood supplies. So there's a guy called William Lai. He's on YouTube. He's invented 8 drugs for angiogenesis to stop cancer cells picking up their own blood supplies. Because, and he says, and I agree with him totally, cancer is fragile. I mean, people don't understand this. People think that cancer is this great ogre inside you. It's not. It's fragile. It can't make blood supplies. It has to steal them and then kind of build them into itself. And that's angiogenesis, and Hinocchio stops that. So does atorvastatin, so does lycopene. But, lycopene is not as strong as atorvastatin. It doesn't work as fast. So we build programs. I mean, that's the one big thing I would say that I've learned over the last 21, 2, 3 years is programs beat cancer. Henry Friedman came out with this great line. He said, it's naive to believe that any one drug could ever beat a cancer, especially one as serious as GBM. But I think I would add, I take that to another yard. I think it's naive to believe any one thing can beat a cancer. Genuinely, you have to build programs. You need 10 things to do the 10 jobs that you want to do. That's the real issue, finding out what jobs you've got to do.
Melatonin.
Melatonin, I will say simply, melatonin is the #1 antioxidant that we make ourselves. It cleans up our cells. It's a massive antioxidant that's also very, very anti-inflammatory. And this will surprise most people, but it's on the CANCERactive community site. I've made a little video on it. You make about 60 times more melatonin during the day than you do at nighttime. So sunlight, even on the darkest day, goes through the clouds, hits your mitochondria, and the mitochondria are the things pumping, they're the power stations, they're pumping out all the dirt and the free radicals and so on. And melatonin helps clean it all up. It's something we've built over the last 7 billion years to help us beat cancer. And melatonin can't do it all itself, so it calls up glutathione and coenzyme Q10 and vitamin E to help it finish the job. We've got a built-in system that can reverse cancer. We can reverse homocysteine. We can clean up our cells. This is why so much interest in melatonin.
Tell me about vitamin D.
Yeah, we've got a 6-second delay here. People might be wondering why we're pausing all the time. Vitamin D is your #1 supplement. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. Vitamin D is a hormone. And something ridiculous in Britain, like 90% of people on diagnosis with cancer are short, woefully short of vitamin D. So nobody in Britain knows the levels. The levels are, I think the American government has a figure that you're deficient below 80. Harvard say 88. And we know that something like 80% of people who on diagnosis in Britain are below 50. We know another 10-12% are below 75. So this puts it in context. And unfortunately, and Rob Thomas and I talked about this one, no doctors, no oncologists, not really. Certainly nurses don't know what the correct figure is. So, oh, look, you're 62, you're way too high. You'll get liver damage. No, you won't. You're way too low. Right. But Michael Hollick, Endocrine Society, they've said that that's deficiency. If you want to be really healthy, you need to be between 100 and 150. I have always said 125. Remember the mnemonic, 125. That's where you should be with vitamin D. So it's a hormone. That's why the Endocrine Society is involved in it. And so you've got your immune system, you've got T cells, and the innate system, you've got B cells, the adaptive system, and T cells, dendritic cells, B cells, antibodies, all got receptors for vitamin D. So if you haven't got enough vitamin D, you don't have an attack system. Your cancer gets through the net. That's how you got it. A lot of people I see who didn't know why they got cancer in the first place, they had no vitamin D inside them, and they had an awful gut.
Wow. And lastly, butyrate.
Butyrate's my fun favorite because above all your gut bacteria, you have 3 groups of superbugs. And these superbugs number about 60 to 90 bugs in each group. And each one makes a short chain fatty acid. And butyrate is made largely by some bugs called ruminococci. Ruminococci love soluble fiber. So if you want to make lots of butyrate, you should eat lots of soluble fiber: oats, pulses, nuts and seeds, vegetables. And butyrate, I think, is the kind of general of the gut. So it heals the gut wall. So people who've had chemo, radio, they've got holes in their gut wall. And from yeasts, they'll have holes in their gut wall over time. So it heals the gut wall. And butyrate also crosses into the bloodstream and crosses the blood-brain barrier. Wow. It's also very, very anti-inflammatory. It also activates your vitamin D, because I've just told you vitamin D is a hormone. So if you go and lie on the beach from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, you make about 15,000 international units. That would throw out the whole body and all its hormones. So what happens next? You deactivate your vitamin D in the liver. But butyrate reactivates your vitamin D, sends it to your T cells and B cells. Now you've got an attack going. And butyrate also, we thought it only attacked colorectal cancer cells. Now we know it attacks breast cancer and various other cancers. So butyrate is almost like the full Monty. And I use it all the time and have done for about 12 years. We use butyrate. And after about 12 weeks, if someone's not having drugs, we use raw cheese and rebuild them gut outwards, gut outwards. Do you know, we actually seriously thought about not helping people who've been to care oncology, because they use doxycycline for a month and do it every other month for like 2 years. And then that's when, because we are so busy. But then we thought, we can't turn people away. I'm so into, you've got to rebuild the gut. You've got to know how to do it. It's 4 ways of rebuilding the gut. You have to heal the gut wall. You have to kill the bad guys. You need trillions of good guys, and you need a new gut lining, because 85% of your immune system comes from the gut lining. So a bad guy comes along, chemicals hit the gut lining, alarm bells go off, bang, everything goes into play. Butyrate is the driver of it all. But people don't have lots of butyrate if they just had loads of chemo. Okay, the governor of the gut. I just made that up.
You talk an awful lot. You talk an awful lot about stress and cancer. Why is that?
Because cancer research used to say that stress had got nothing to do with cancer. It's rubbish. The experts at UCLA, they have a stress management laboratory. It's specialized in cancer for 20 years. And they say that people who actively manage their stress survive significantly longer than people who don't. And it's two things. It's this, managing this, and also it's managing your stress hormones. I've just put two studies together, which started elsewhere, and I've added things to them on breast cancer and stress. So we know that stress can cause cancer. We know that stress can put your blood sugar up. We know that stress can put your gut bacteria down. We know that stress can cause chronic inflammation throughout the body and spread the cancer. We know that stress actually hits special receptor sites that cancer knows and likes and can use. I mean, for goodness sake, cancer research, surely you talk about stress now. I mean, they weren't about 6-7 years ago, but surely they know stress causes cancer. And we want people to believe what I believe. I'm into the biology of belief, right? I always have been. I believe everybody can beat their cancer. So you've got to manage this, and you need to physically manage your stress hormones. So I mean, you know, I had Fiona Shaquila Burns on my program, and she talked about EFT, visualization, Psych K. That's where I am. I'm on changing your belief system so that you can beat your cancer.
Look, out of CANCERactive sprung you doing personal prescriptions for people. You've helped an awful lot of people since we started. How did that come about?
Another accident. I did a speech at a conference to oncologists and called it serendipity. I think that's the right word. And it just basically, my life's been one accident after another since, you know, Catherine got a cancer. But I was kind of, I guess I was in my 5 years off, you know, I did Reiki and, you know, I became a personal trainer and all this sort of thing just for fun because I've always done sport and so on. And I read loads. And when Catherine got ill, I read just about every book going. These shelves used to be full, not of pictures, of books on cancer, you must remember. And
yeah.
And I think it's fair to say I started by accident. I came over to do, I think it was a BBC show, I can't remember who it was, radio show, and it was being done at Olympia in London, a health show. And I came over and walked into the office, which we don't even have now, and Jeffrey Boycott rang up. And I built him a program anyway, diet, exercise, all that sort of thing. Here's a few supplements and so on. So I covered most of the bases. And then I said to him, it's a really weird thing to do. He's got a lump. And one oncologist had given him 12 weeks. You know the story. And the other oncologist said, I think I can save your life. I'm going to break your jaw, go in, cut the tumor out. And I'm going to, you know, have to give you chemo and radio. And I think I can make sure you survive, but you will never talk on television again. And I said to him, it's a really weird place to have a lump. Normally it's an ulcer. And I said, it was my little joke. I said, when you were in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka playing cricket, did you ever get the runs? And he said, all the bloody time. Someone said, you got a parasite. So this was again, you know, gut. So I gave him parasite killer. And 8 weeks later, when I walked into Leeds, not Royal Infirmary or something like that, he said they were bloody embarrassed. So we got rid of his parasite and the tumor started coming down. But then the next morning I met Galina. Galina was given 3 months to go and write her will. She had ovarian. Built a program for her. She's just got remarried to a Frenchman. She's coming out here in Saint-Tropez on the Les Voiliers in the first week in October. So she's alive 25 years on or whatever. And then Mrs. Omar rang up the show and said, I'm grade 4 stage 4 breast cancer. What can I do? Had a chat, another chat. She works for us, CANCERactive. So whether I wanted to do it or not, word of mouth got out, of course.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. So word of mouth is huge. I would think 95% of people come through word of mouth. I mean,
And you've got people queuing up, and you're still
yeah,
helping people
we've gone
today.
the other
So
way.
it's
Knox pulled all her hair out. Knox is my PA. She's married to one of my friends out in Thailand. She's pulling all her hair out because I've gone the other way. I said, at the moment, people are waiting for MRI scans, CT scans, and everything in Britain too long. They're waiting for their oncologists. They're getting 5 minutes for their oncologist. They don't understand what on earth they're supposed to be doing. We're going to go the other way. So instead of not you telling everybody, I'm so busy, Chris can't get to you for 2 months, we're going to go the other way. I'm going to fit everybody in. I'm down here on my own in the south of France, as you know. And so I'm going to fit people in. And we'll just see what happens. Because I feel very sorry for people. I mean, the number of people who book me, even a month in advance, and then still haven't got their results or anything like that. And no oncologists, I'm sorry, I'm not having a go at oncologists. They obviously haven't got time or anything like that, but no oncologist sits down and explains their cancer to them. And they want to know. They want to know what their cancer is. They want to know why they've got it. They want to know what the causes are. They want to know what they can do about it. And it's no good oncologists just breezing over it and going, no, you don't want to take supplements. They won't do any good. They won't help you. When they do. I mean, people have got cancer. They haven't got dementia. They've got cancer. And someone needs to start caring about them. I don't know who treats oncologists, their bedside manners, but most oncologists in Britain, I get grumbled at about them all the time, and mistakes and all sorts of things. Now, of course, everybody makes mistakes, but I want Activate program point 1, explain the cancer. Colorectal cancer takes me half an hour to explain the cancer and what the factors are that are important in colorectal cancer, gut bacteria, histamines, things like this. And no one ever explains it to them. They just say, here's the drugs. We're going to give you the drugs. Then we're going to give you the operation. Then we'll probably give you more drugs. Ovarian cancer. Ovarian cancers caused by E. coli and chlamydia antibodies. That obviously you had chlamydia at one point, and E. coli is a big player, and yeast are a big player, and so on. We got loads of research and all of this. It all exists. It all exists. I hope. Was that the answer to the question?
Well, your formula is not to beat the cancer, but to build a better body, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, the probably I do have the Activate program, which I sort of work to, but it varies by the person, it varies by the cancer, and I've got someone who should be nameless who wants to come and work with me for me and learn. And I don't know how long the training scheme is going to be. I really don't. Because, I mean, I can do it on colorectal cancer. I can do it on brain tumors. They're all different. Prostate cancer, they're all different. And, Activate 1 is to explain, let people understand what this is all about. And then they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then it's, what's your oxygen level? Can it be 99? What's your vitamin D level? Can it be 125? And then we come to blood sugar and blood fats. People don't realize that the doctor says they're fine for blood sugar if they're 7. They, because 7 they're going to get diabetes. But no, we want it below 4. And cancer has a hard time feeding. Cholesterol, 6 is when you're going to start having heart attacks and strokes. No, we want it below 4. And I spoke at a conference and Thomas Seyfried, professor in Boston College, the ketogenic diet guy, was there. And we got on like a house on fire, and we're talking about these things. And he's got all the same figures as I have. So he's a scientist and I'm a scientist, and goodness knows, we've come to the same figures on how you limit cancers from feeding and how you limit cancer from spreading. Yeah, and then I worry about the gut, and then I worry about the diet, and then I worry about stress. That's probably 8 things. Some people, you don't have to worry about it. They've got it taped. But other people do, and sometimes I have to add in other things. So it's estrogen to worry about if it's an estrogen-driven cancer, or whatever. There are other things. So the Activate program, it's like probably there's 8 steps, but there might be 9 or 10 on a Tuesday.
on a Tuesday if there's a wine in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a
So
wine.
what does integrative medicine in cancer mean to you?
Increased survival. I think, although there are oncologists right now going to tear their hair out, I think we can make drugs work better. And as you know, perfect example, got a lady in New Zealand and a lady in Australia told categorically by their doctors they cannot take supplements with their PARP inhibitors. So I said, all right, I'll write it up. I'll go and look. I don't just go and look for them. I go and look for everybody. And within a week, I produced an article, and the top 14 things I use, berberine, turmeric, whatever, are themselves PARP inhibitors. That's just not true. We had a lady who I built a program for her. I think she was in Canada. She was taking Ibrance. The doctor said, oh, you mustn't take turmeric and milk thistle and whatever. And so she went to the hospital pharmacist who said, no, you mustn't take turmeric, milk thistle, whatever. So she got home and she rang up Pfizer and said, you make Ibrance. Could you put me in touch with one of your scientists who knows all about Ibrance? And she got straight through to the guy and said, can I take turmeric, berberine, whatever, and Ibrance? He went, yeah, no problem. It's the world I live in, the world I live in. So for me, we make their drugs work better. And Rob Thomas did this on his show. He just come from ASCO. He said, did you know, Chris, turmeric makes drugs work better, not worse, better. I said, yeah, I do.
Oh.
You know, and you know, it's frustrating. So number one, we're going to make your drugs work better. We can get a better result from them. I think that's going to increase your survival. Number two, we're going to reduce the side effects. I get people saying I'm sailing through cancer. But as you say, number three, you built a body conducive to cancer. I'm going to build you a body conducive to health. That's what I want. I want you to come out the other side with this wonderful body, because cancers don't like wonderful bodies. They like sick bodies. And I want to build you a wonderful body. And as you know, Ferouz, who invited us to her house, said in Barbaya, she's, you know, was with a doctor in Britain. She said, I've worked you out one day. She said, you don't treat cancer, you treat people. And I think that's right. I treat people. That's what the issue is. You have, Gerson was right, you know, the terrain, and you built a body conducive to cancer. I'm just trying to get you back to the 0 point, get you under control, and then move you forward and build a body conducive to health. It's not rocket science. You know, you've seen me speak. I say it after about 3 sentences. The psychologist in the room.
Yeah, I know. Right, here's the question a lot of viewers are going to want to know the answer to. It's been 20 magnificent years. Are you still going to be doing this in 20 years' time?
30, I think, probably 30. I'm only 74. Well, I hope so. I mean, in all honesty, I enjoy doing it. I get a complete buzz out of helping people. You know, whatever it was, 6 weeks before my birthday, 3 people went NED in a week. No evidence of disease. I love that. You know, you've seen the letters. I put some on the wall, but there's others that come around. You know, and we can't put them all on the wall. We'd have the longest wall in history. Google would finish the account. I love doing it.
My own wife Josie, proof.
Pardon?
My own wife Josie, living proof.
Yeah, Josie's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. You know, kidney cancer. They wanted to flush her with chemo because obviously there was metastasis about. Here we are 5 years down the line. Has she had a problem? No. You know, and that's what I do. So I really like helping people. I think it's the complete antithesis of what I was doing in my life with advertising, although I got to the top of that. And the buzz you get from helping people is huge. And what more could I say? Why would I retire? It comes back. It's very funny, actually. If you watch Butner's series on the blue zones, he decided that it didn't matter whether it was the blue zone in Sardinia or the one in America or the one in Okinawa. Everybody, even when they were 98, had a mission. They still had a mission. And even though they're old people, they still, you know, wanted to see the grandchild grow up or something like this. It was amazing. He said, we just don't have that in the Western world. People, you know, pack in, you know, argue about whether they should be retiring at 64, 65 and pack in. That's the end of them. So
Yep.
I'm happy to have a mission. You know, how long it's going to last, I don't know, because the world of medicine is shutting down more and more. You know, my attitude, as you know, is that oncologists have a playlist, a bit like Radio 1 disc jockeys. They're turning themselves into Radio 1 disc jockeys. So they have a playlist for you. If you're stage 1 and 2, they think they can save your life. If you're 3, 4, they're just trying to give you a bit of a longer life. But they've got all the drugs, the routines on there. So you take this drug, that doesn't work, you move on to this one, you move on to this one. And, you know, EU's trying to pass misinformation laws. And Britain will have a misinformation law. So just like, you know, I have got a degree in virology. Well, I've got a biochemistry degree, but I specialize in cancer and virology. And some of the things that have been said about viruses are just completely wrong. I mean, there's a Gordy at Oxford I'm supposed to be going back to in about a week's time. I wanted to ask the biochemistry tutor how he teaches biochemistry now, because almost everything that we've heard on COVID has been wrong. It's not what we were taught. So what happens? And I think it's a real problem. I think that, yes, I'd love to be around in 20 years' time doing what I'm doing because I enjoy it so much. But I think me saying turmeric will improve eyebrows will be dubbed disinformation, misinformation. I think there's going to come a day. I don't know how far it is away. Vitamin D will be shut down because it's a hormone, just like melatonin is. And you'll only be allowed to have 2 milligrams or something stupid. I fear that's what's going to happen. Which is, sorry,
Chris,
gloomy note. I'm not a good person. I just think I wish people would stand up and say, no, we're not going to accept this.
Chris, it's been thoroughly enjoyable talking with you. I mean, I've known you a long time, mate, but
we've covered a lot.
Never ceases. Oh, absolutely. And all I can say on behalf of the viewers is thank you. Thank you for giving up the time, and thank you for doing what you do.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I think several things I'd like to say. I mean, first of all, people are coming out of the woodwork ever since we put it out that I was going to do this show a couple of weeks ago. And there's loads of people who want to be interviewed because, you know, I've got a GBM person 17 years down the line, and I've got ovarian people 12 years down the line. They want to be interviewed. So it's lovely. So we're going to try on Sundays and do somebody every week. What does integrative medicine in cancer mean to them? They don't have to have beaten their cancer. They just maybe they're just holding their cancer. Got one guy who's playing golf in Thailand and playing golf in South Africa, and you'd never know he had cancer, but 38-year smoker. So, you know, by all rights, it's gloom and doom for him. So I just, as I said, I think everybody can beat their cancer. Just get them under control and then go forward. But I think I'd like to say a big thank you to, number one, everybody who's helped me, you know, because the people have come and gone, but I'd like to thank everybody who's helped me. Too many people to say. I'd like to thank everybody on the medical board, all the region execs, people like that. I'd like to thank all the members, because the members, yeah, I did do shows throughout the pandemic, but the members, people who joined us, kept us going. We don't waste money, do we? I mean, that's the one thing about CANCERactive. We have a limited budget, and that's it. We don't go and spend lots of money on lots of things. We don't have pension schemes. Cancer research, are you listening? We don't have pension schemes. So I'd like to thank you.
You have wages.
Pardon? We have what?
We don't even have wages.
No, we don't have wages. That's right. So yeah, I mean, I would like to think, I'd like to thank everybody who's played a part in this charity, because on one hand, ICON was Integrative Cancer and Oncology News. So we probably the first people to put the word out there. I don't know, but maybe someone's going to moan and say, "Oh, I got it first in 1999." Okay, but we were certainly the first people to champion it in the magazine, perhaps the only people. And I think that, you know, what we're seeing now is we're seeing the culmination of the efforts of thousands of people. I always wanted us to be the people's charity. I didn't want us to be the drugs company's charity. And I wanted us to be the people's charity. And I think that's what we are. We're not terrible. I think we're one of the best kept secrets. I don't think lots of people know about us. But then we've spent our money frugally. We don't have lots of people all over the country shouting about us. But I think we, from PPs we do now. So we'll see. I think we ought to be going in 20 years. So certainly got enough money to go for quite a while now, haven't we? We've been left a few bob lately by some people.
Yep.
So it's good. It's good. So
fantastic.
You're not going to get rid of me that easily.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming back out to the south of France in a couple of weeks' time and spending some more time with you, mate. And some raw cheese and some good.
It's wonderful. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, doing PPs, I've met some lovely people, and I've met, made friends on doing PPs. I've had some really, really interesting people too, as you know. And so, I just want to thank everybody who's played a part in CANCERactive being 20 years old. The patients, everybody, members, everything. Okay. So thank you.
Brilliant.
Enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.